Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed participants, welcome to today's webinar on mapping the value for money of precision medicine technology. We are delighted to have you all here as we delve into the fascinating world of precision medicine and its economic implications. Precision medicine is rapidly evolving tailored medical approach that holds tremendous potential for revolutionizing healthcare. However, it is crucial to assess the value for money of precision medicine technologies, considering their significant development and implementation costs. Today, as we gather to learn more about the health economics of precision medicine, it is with great pleasure that I introduced our esteemed keynote speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause to welcome Ms. Sudhamani Dibak, who is the head of HITAP's international unit. She started working at HITAP as an Overseas Development Institute Fellow ODI in 2015. At HITAP, Sudhamani has supported health technology assessment initiatives in Asia and Africa, and has also been involved in conducting health system research. Prior to working at HITAP, Ms. Sudhamani worked at the World Bank Group. She completed her Master of Arts from the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Study, USA. Her insights are sure to provide us with invaluable guidance on navigating the complex landscape of policy decisions and ensuring optimal healthcare outcomes for all. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Ms. Sudhamani as she shares her experience and enlightens us. We are truly privileged to have you here. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dimple, and the organizing team for putting together this webinar on a very exciting topic. And I'd like to also welcome all our participants for joining us this morning. As my colleague Dimple mentioned, precision medicine is an exciting and growing area in the field, which is really transforming the field of medicine. And what it does is allows us to provide more tailored intervention based on new technologies and novel approaches, and to assess individual risk, make early diagnosis, and be able to actually predict individual responses to these interventions. And this can really help us revolutionize how we address or approach medical science going forward. While it brings a lot of hope, we also need to be a bit discerning with the hype that comes along with any new technology that becomes available. And as researchers and health technology assessment agencies, it really is incumbent upon us to weigh what are the pros and what could be potentially the risks of introducing such technologies in societies, and also prepare for the future. We cannot presume that these technologies are in themselves going to provide good value for money. But at the same time, given their nature, precision medicine technologies, evaluating them is going to be challenging. And that's where today's talk becomes really pertinent and relevant in our context. The team from the National University of Singapore, led by Assistant Professor Dr. Wenjia Chen, as well as colleagues from HITAP, with the support of PRECISE in Singapore, have conducted a comprehensive review to understand the current state of approaches and challenges for assessing precision medicine. This, as one of the most famous thinkers of our eras, Sir Isaac Newton has said, we stand on the shoulder of giants. And here we are today to learn from experiences of researchers around the world on what they have done, synthesized by our colleagues from NUS and HITAP. This work has already been published in a very reputed peer-reviewed journal. And today we are pleased that Assistant Professor Wenjia Chen is able to share these findings with all of you. This work will also be used to inform the development of a reference case for evaluating precision medicine in Thailand in a work that is being supported by the Health Systems Research Institute as well. So we hope that you enjoy this talk today and do stay tuned for developments as we explore and prepare for this field together. Thank you, and back to Dr. Dimple.
Thank you so much, Sudhamani, for your keynote remarks. And now, moving forward, It is my utmost pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker, Dr. Chen Wenjia. Dr. Chen is a prominent researcher and faculty member at the National University of Singapore Saucy Hock School of Public Health. She holds a PhD in health economics and outcome research from esteemed University of British Columbia, Canada. She brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to her field. Dr. Chen's research focuses on tackling the intricate challenges involved in management of chronic diseases, with the overarching goal of ensuring the sustainability of our healthcare system. Her work dwells into the areas such as economic burden of chronic diseases, trajectory of diseases, comparative analysis, and personalized predictive modeling. As we learn more about personalized predictive modeling, this area promises in improving individualized care and treatment outcomes for patients. We are truly privileged to have Dr. Chen with us today to present on her research findings on mapping the value for money of precision medicine technologies worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Wenjia Chen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this precious opportunity to be able to join you in HITAP and present this wonderful work together that we conducted together with Dr. Yacht and Dimple. So the topics of today is that I'm gonna just give you a brief overview of the precision medicine and the project that we have done, which is focused on mapping the value for money of precision medicine and the challenges and best practice in the economic evaluation of precision medicine. So as thanks Dimple for the kind introduction. As Dimple has mentioned, I'm an assistant professor from NUS, and this work is the systematic review itself is funded by Precise Singapore. And the future development of a reference case is funded by the Health Systems Research Institute of Thailand. And we don't have any conflict of interest to declare. Okay, so before we get started, I would just like to go over the definition of precision medicine with you, because a precise definition will be very relevant to the subsequent economic evaluation on its value for money. In general, precision medicine is a medical approach that separates patients or separate people into particular groups. And the reason for this separation or stratification is to improve the efficiency of healthcare or to maximize the benefit of the treatment. So different organizations may have different definitions of PM, precision medicine, that they are going to use for their evaluation of the technology. For instance, Precise Singapore, which is an institute that evaluates the cost and effectiveness of precision medicine, it defines PM as a medical approach that takes into account the individual variations in genetics, environmental and lifestyle factors, which will allow them to stratify the patient so that the doctors will be having more accurate prediction about the treatment and the prevention strategies that can work better or work well in different groups of people. But another independent group of health economists, which is called the Health Economics of Personalized Medicine panel, they define precision medicine as a medical model that based the therapeutic choice on the result of gene profiling. So it's more like a genetic testing centered, or aims to collect pathogenic gene mutations like gene therapies. So from the different definition, we can see the focus on like precision medicine is kind of sort of like an umbrella term, but we would prefer to have a more centered focus on genetic based precision medicine in today's discussion. And for the genomic precision medicine, according to its application natures of application, actually we can stratify the PM's interventions into different groups. So one big, one major component of PM is the test-guided precision medicine. We can use genetic profiling technology to perform screening tests to see the predisposition of gene mutations that can lead to a higher risk of having a certain type of disease in the future, such as the BRCA genes. They are associated with hereditary breast and ovarian cancers. And from the blood sample of human bodies, we may be able to perform diagnostic tests to check the DNA sections there and to look for like an early mutation, like an early signs of genetic mutation that is an indication of cancer, in particular for like lung cancer. And there are also prognostic tests that has been developed based on the genetic mutations or gene profiles, such as the 6 metastasis related prognostic gene signature for a type of cancer. And one of the most important and most commonly used test-guided PM, we can see it's the pharmacogenomic test. It's a test that which is often coupled with a treatment to detect the test. The purpose of the test itself is to detect which patient will be having a higher risk of suffering from adverse drug effects of certain drugs, or have like optimal or better drug responses from their genetic information. And these type of technology can be also used for targeted cancer therapy. And aside from test-guided PM, we will also have another type of PM called therapeutic PM that is directly tackling at the molecular level, such as the immunotherapy, which is used to boost up the body's immune system to fight against a certain type of cancer, and gene therapy, which is directly targeting a pathogenic gene mutation with the goal to correct it. So these are not test-guided, but therapeutic PM. And okay. And one thing we need to bear in mind is that precision medicine or genetic-based precision medicine is not a static status. It's been evolving in complexity and scope all the time. And nowadays, people are, with the help of like big data analytics and the better genome sequencing technology, like whole genome sequencing, we are able to get omics data, like at different levels of at different levels, such as like we are able to get the genomic information about a person and their proteins profile. We can have their lifestyle, as the precise Singapore's definition. We can have their biomarkers, lifestyles, all those like different sort of information together. And with the combination of these sort of information and the big data technology, in the future, we may be able to use a one omic-based testing to inform everything downstream all at once, such as treatment pathway, therapy choice, and disease risk. So precision medicine is no longer a dependent of a treatment. It itself involves a complex decision space that is targeting different type of diseases. And PM technology has been rapidly developing. The number of diagnostic tests, and for example, has increased substantially in the past 10 years. And there are more and more tests available and more genes being discovered that has a pathogenesis pathway. So we are now facing a new era that we need to consider like an omic-based testing into the genetic, into the precision medicine approach. Okay, Thank you very much. And then in the next few slides, I would like to talk about the importance of health technology assessment. And the reason why we need to systematically evaluate the value of PM, it is because the value of PM itself is multifaceted and it has different layers. For example, for patient, at the patient level, the PM is benefiting the patients mainly through by empowering the patients to make their independent decisions, to get shared decisions with the caregivers, care providers. For instance, the patient may have a better, more timely diagnosis, and they are more informed about the choices lays ahead of them. And in addition, they will benefit from the value of knowing, and they will be benefiting from having improved quality of life. So you can see the value of PM can be direct or indirect on the patient level. Some of the value cannot be measured, such as the value of knowing, the empowered, greater confidence, and the feeling of empowerment. But certain aspects can be directly measured and being assessed, such as the timely diagnosis, more accurate diagnosis, and improved quality of life. And at the provider's level, the PM will benefiting them from improving the accuracy of the diagnosis and improving the prescribing pattern that can lead to improved treatment outcomes. So at the hospital level or healthcare systems level, the likely benefit or value of PM is to improve patient outcomes and to avoid malpractice. And also, indirectly, it can also lead to a more increased reputation of the system. And at the payer's perspective, the precision medicine will be beneficial such that it's improving the clinical effectiveness and cost effectiveness of the health technologies that the payer is investing on. In addition, it will lead to also a greater confidence of physical certainty in the decision making. And for policymakers or a societal level, PM is able to lead to safe, effective, and clear health policies, and also the improved investment on health spending, and also the protection of patient rights. So you can see from all these four panels, and there are more there are furthermore organizations and entities that can benefit from PM, such as health technology assessment bodies. But I am just listing the direct stakeholders here, and you can see one common theme from these benefits is that the PM is able to lead to improved patient outcomes, and PM is able to improve the decision making. However, we need to bear in mind that despite these benefits, introducing a new PM into a healthcare system often requires substantial collective resources to fund. As a result, even in the countries with very advanced health technologies and mature reimbursement systems, such as United States, the clinical implementation of PM is lagging behind the rapid technology evolution of PM. For instance, the commercial genetic testing was used only in 1/10 of the population in the past 10 years. And only half of the states in the US have a CAR T-cell therapy unit. And a major barrier to the clinical implementation of PM in a wider population is because of economic barrier. Stakeholders, they're unsure about their investment and whether the scale of their investment, both at the current moment and in the long-term future, taking into consideration the unforeseeable adverse outcomes. and they are unsure about whether the investment is worthwhile given the potential benefits or effectiveness of the PM. And health technology assessment, it's a systematic and multidisciplinary process that is able to inform the value for money of a new technology and provide guidance on how this technology can be used in different health systems. So this figure below shows the flow of a product cycle, life cycle, from the early clinical use stage to the market access stage. So at the very beginning of a product life cycle, there are basic research on mechanisms, and then targeting for a specific product and the proof of principle, and later how to develop or to design the value proposition of the new product. And then when the product is mature enough, it's launched to the market access status, like a stage where we need to investigate their costs and benefits for coverage decisions. So, but we are able to perform HTA throughout the product cycle. And we can separate these type of health technology assessment by the stage of the product cycle. So the early stage HTA can help with setting priority of products to develop by looking into their cost effectiveness profiles, even at conceptualization stage. And then it will be helping them to develop the target product profiles and characteristics by looking into the performance of the product and the different suitable population, patient population, and the scope of intervention the product can have. And early HTA can also help the product by designing the clinical studies and marketing strategies. And then when it enters into the market access stage, we can perform conventional and more complicated HTA to assess the public reimbursement models, what's the percentage of a coverage and whether this product is worth to be covered according to their current cost effectiveness profile. And also HTA at the market access stage can help the public or the decision maker to set priorities. Yeah, but when everything is uncertain at the current stage, countries like Singapore has designed different schemes to improve or to assess the clinical implementation of genetic-based PM. For instance, in Singapore, Precise Singapore has funded 5 pilots to facilitate the incorporation of such type of genetic or genomic tests into the clinical pathways. And these 5 CIPs, clinical implementation pilots, they will seek to embed clinical application of PM into a different purposes, such as a population level screening, or to detect the prognosis of kidney disease, or to detect the drug responses. So basically, these 5 pilots are used to assess the potential of genetic testing-based PM in helping with the broader population about diagnosis, early risk prevention, and also the actual treatment, risk stratified treatment of patient cohorts. And economic evaluation, or say cost effectiveness analysis, pertains to be a major component of these CIPs, including budget impact and the distributional cost and effectiveness of interventions within the health system. So that inspired us to actually perform a study based a systematic review based study to thoroughly look into the value for money of PM and how we are able to assess the value for money of PM. So in our group, we conducted a big, comprehensive, systematic review on the cost effectiveness studies related to precision medicine, from methodology to their current approaches and to the evidence that they have been obtained from the current approaches. And we synthesize the current evidence through meta-analysis and meta-regression techniques to map the value heterogeneity, mapped the distribution of value for money of precision medicine. And we also were able to identify the key predictors of value, or say value heterogeneity. And further, we look into the methodology papers to look for the challenges, the current challenges in methodology and policy in performing economic evaluation on PM. And in combination with expert consensus and also the approaches or the limitation of approaches that we currently discover from our systematic review, we'll be drafting an economic evaluation recommendation to standardize and the conduct and report of cost effectiveness analysis on PM. So we have a few publications on these topics already, including a protocol paper on mapping the value for money of PM, and also a methodology paper which summarized the methodological challenges of conducting economic evaluation on PM. So first, I would like to talk about the work that we have done on mapping the value for PM, money for PM. We performed a large systematic review on the available, basically all the available databases in the past 10 years, because we regard the technology that is more like a prior, the earlier technology that was like more than 10 years ago to be sort of outdated because of the rapid development and evolution of the PM technology. And we include cost effectiveness studies or methodological papers of PM that is focused on human subjects, and these studies should regard PM as a medical intervention with gene profiling for diagnostic or prediction or immunotherapy and gene therapy. And these studies must have reported cost and effectiveness outcomes in terms of like life year gains, disability adjusted or quality adjusted life year gains like DALY and QALY. One of the limitations is that we only look for papers that has full text and has like an English language, was written by English language or translated into English language. And the primary outcome, in order to summarize the value distribution and to identify the key source of value heterogeneity, we choose a primary outcome, which is the net monetary benefit over the ISAR, the incremental cost effectiveness ratio, because net monetary benefit is essentially the monetarized, the cost, the difference in money between the monetarized incremental effectiveness and the cost of the intervention, incremental cost of the intervention over the comparator arm. So in this case, like net monetary benefit is a term that follows the central theorem of distribution, like it can be normally distributed, while the ISAR is a ratio that is usually not normally distributed. So we pick net monetary benefit for the subsequent meta-analysis and meta-regression that follows a normal distribution assumption. And one thing I would like to remind you is that we use one-time national GDP per capita of the study year of the particular country as the willingness to pay threshold. In this way, we can unify the willingness to pay threshold across the world and take into consideration lower to middle income countries. This is a recommended approach by World Health Organization. We performed meta-analysis to summarize the value distribution of PM across contexts and these conditions. And we performed meta-regression with machine learning to identify the key value drivers for PM. So I'm not going to go into details of the systematic search process, but we begin with a huge data set of over 5,000 papers. And eventually we shortlist to 275 papers that are focused on the cost effectiveness analysis of PM and 39 methodology or policy articles that focus on the challenges and best practice in the economic evaluation of PM. And as you can see, the orange bar indicates the number of conventional PE, like economic evaluations on PM over the years. So in the past 10 years, I can see an increase in the conventional EEs, which indicate an increase in the development and a market access of new PM technologies. But the number of early economic evaluations on PM stays relatively stable. So this is an indication that we need to maximize or improve the use of early HTA in precision medicine domain, which is pretty much needed to better guide the early decision-making process in research and development. Okay, so essentially, out of the 275 papers that we identified, they are focusing on different type of PM applications. And you can see the majority of these papers are focused on pharmacogenomic tests, or say companion diagnostics. That is like the PM genetic testing is used in combination with the subsequent treatment as a companion diagnostic tool. And so this is the basic characteristics of these type of economic evaluations studies on different type of PMs. And I would just like to highlight, firstly, the therapeutic PM is very expensive, whereas the test-based like a genetic test itself, the price has been going down in the recent years. And it's more and more affordable. And secondly, most of these studies, or say almost all of these studies, economic evaluation studies, they're from the Western countries, such as region of Americas, Europe, and Western Pacific regions like Australia and New Zealand. Okay, and then for the study perspective, a majority of them use a healthcare systems perspective, whereas societal perspective is usually recommended for conducting health technology assessment on a new technology. And I'm going to show you the potential speculation on this. And also, I would like to mention that the majority of these economic evaluation studies, they are the conventional economic evaluation study for market access process. And you can see the majority of these studies concluded that their PM intervention was cost effective. Okay, so we performed a large systematic review. We performed a large meta-analysis of the net monetary benefit that were reported in these economic evaluation studies. And this is the forest plot that's showing the pooled, the weighted pooled net monetary benefit across intervention type and different contexts. So by weighted pool, we mean that we summarize these net monetary benefit metrics by considering the uncertainty of these measures from each study. And one study can contribute to more than one data points because it can test for multiple interventions. As you can see here, the major message here is that genetics test for screening use, it typically has the highest value for money. However, if you look down, and by the way, the multi-gene panel testing is also being associated with highest average, average value for money, net monetary benefit. And if you look at the geographical regions, the studies conducted from regions of Americas typically reported PM as cost effective. And so as the studies conducted in Europe, but not the studies conducted in Australia and New Zealand, the Western Pacific region. And also, of course, most of these countries, they are high income countries, But if you look at the bottom line, the type of funders, the message here is that we can see, hold on. I haven't put the proportions of studies that were funded by public source or private source here, but they're with equal, like a similar proportions. But you can see like the public funded studies, they generally found no evidence that genetic testing is cost effective. Whereas the studies funded by a private agency, like a commercial entity, they tend to report that the PM is cost effective. So that pretty much explains why we can see like the studies performed in the United States and the regions of Americas with like a more commercial, like a greater, the more advanced technology development and the greater commercialization of health technologies, they tend to report PM as cost effective. And this is also this is also related to our observation that the screening test is generally associated with higher cost effectiveness benefit profiles. It is because they are like a more mature technology and which has been populated and promoted across the world by both private and public entities. But the key message here is that the public funded studies found no evidence of genetic testing to be cost effective, whereas the private funded studies reported as cost effective. And we can see also the early stage economic evaluation tend to report that to report a higher value for money of PM than it would actually be when it comes to a more mature market access stage. So this can indicate these findings indicate that there could be a potential systematic bias due to methodology that we have been used and due to the fact that maybe some of the technology like economic evaluation that shows PM as not cost effective from private entities or the smaller studies were not published. So there's a systematic bias that cause such discrepancy. And if we look into the cost effectiveness, summarized cost effectiveness profiles of PM, the genetic testing by the disease areas, so we can see that like for each type of genetic testing, it's highly sensitive to the disease area that it has been applied to. For the newer technology, for example, the new genes that discovered to be specific to certain type of disease, the technology itself is generally associated with lower value for money as compared to the established domains like breast cancer for screening tests. Okay. So we can see the value for money of genetic testing is mainly concentrated in the established disease models, and it's highly sensitive to disease areas, even the same type of technology like screening tests. And the other thing is we barely see prognostic tests to be cost effective, which can be due to the fact that the prognostic test is mainly applied to like a stratify cancer patients based on their like a prognosis stage by the time that the treatment itself will not be like helping a lot. So this comes to we'll be discussing about that later. We also look into the cost effectiveness evidence of therapeutic PM, and we summarize them and find that therapeutic PM only appear to be cost effective if it was reported in the early stage evaluation or the evaluation that is funded by private entities. And if you look at the disease areas that the therapeutic PM is applied to, surprisingly, even in cancer, it's not gonna be appearing to be cost effective. And there is only like a one type of application that is like an applicable disease area that therapeutic PM has demonstrated its cost effectiveness in general. So we further look into the major sources of value heterogeneity, and we screened through over 50 explanatory variables that is explaining like the basic study information from study year, country, to the variables that explain the difference because the value difference because of the performance or of treatment or PM, like incremental effectiveness, to the variables that explain the potential discrepancies in methodology, like the model type, time horizon, study perspective. So like from over 50 explanatory variables, we perform a meta regression using machine learning techniques called lasso to identify the key value drivers for the NMB, net monetary benefit of genetic tests, considering the uncertainty in these metrics. And we found that across all different type of applications, incremental effectiveness of the intervention, the test treatment itself, is the major driver for the value for money of genetic testing. For example, in screening tests, the incremental effectiveness of the intervention, I mean the screening test, together with the target age, they can explain most of the differences in the value for money of PM here, meaning that the value, the economic value of the screening test is entirely dependent on whether they can lead to like improved quality of life year gains, and which is highly related to the age of screening. For diagnostic tests and prognostic tests, I can see that like the model, it's more susceptible to study specification of the study, or say it could be susceptible to the manipulation of the study, because the value for money can vary greatly or to a certain extent by specifying the study perspective, choosing the appropriate source of cost data and the model type, and even by like a study bias here. But still, incremental effectiveness is the one and only major value driver, especially for pharmacogenomic tests. Okay, so these findings also partially explain why we saw before that here, like a study, we have seen, okay, sorry. We have seen here, like high income countries or the countries from like rich Western regions, or those public private funded studies, they tend to show the cost effectiveness profile to be more like a positive. And it could be related to the choice of study perspective that we found here in the first table, that the majority of these economic evaluations, they're using a healthcare systems perspective, which will allow them or give them more leverage to. So the default assessment perspective should be societal perspective. But when researchers may find that the intervention is not cost effective under a societal perspective, they will be narrowing the perspective to healthcare systems perspective. Okay, so we also derive the marginal effects of incremental effectiveness. So per extra unit of life year gain or quality gain or daily gain, it can substantially increase the net monetary benefit of different type of genetic testing, regardless of the changes of other covariates. But surprisingly, for therapeutic PM, incremental effectiveness itself is no longer a value driver. It's not even a significant value driver in the univariate meta-regression, but a significant source of heterogeneity, value heterogeneity, comes from treatment cost. So the cost of therapeutic PM itself, it's determining whether the PM is cost effective. This is because usually the therapeutic PM is very expensive. And also it can be subject to study manipulation, that you change the study perspective, the cost effectiveness profile can change. Okay, so this is to summarize. Our conclusion is made into a no conclusion. We can see the PM's value for money across different application types. They're very difficult to be concluded from current publications. The intervention that appear to be cost effective, they can be coming from a highly commercialized country with very advanced technology development, or they can come from a very well-established disease panel in a very well-established like test types. It doesn't mean that the new market or the new disease area has less potential or less cost effective. It is just because we lack of evidence. So we need to fill in the evidence gap. And we need to also pay attention to the systematic bias that is highly likely to be presented in the economic evaluation of PM, given the discrepancy of cost effectiveness findings from public funded and private funded studies, and also between like early stage and mature stage economic evaluations, market access stage economic evaluations. That's why we concluded, instead of like saying which type of technology is more cost effective, we concluded that the conduct and report of economic evaluation of PM should be local based and standardized to allow for meaningful comparisons. And in the next stage, we further summarize the methodological and policy challenges. And I'm not going to go into details of this section, given that we still have time? No time. Okay, so we're just gonna skip this. Maybe I will end this slide on here. We conducted a stakeholder interview during one precise Singapore workshop that included stakeholders from relevant decision-making bodies and HTAs of Singapore and Thailand. And you can see like stakeholders consider budget impact, cost savings, and cost effectiveness of PM as the most important leveraging factors for reimbursement decisions or like research decisions. They also are very interested in real world outcomes, like the number of adverse health events that has been averted. But in the real actual approaches to current economic evaluation of PM, we will see that less than 10% of these studies ever reported budget impact. So budget impact analysis is rarely integrated into the formal cost effectiveness and economic evaluations. And also there will be a knowledge evidence gap. So that leads to our final slides. We need to develop a reference case that synthesizes the aspects from like a clinical aspects from patient intervention comparator outcome to, I think I copy paste, but the right hand side panel should be indicating like the ethics, equity, and the modeling approaches and the data. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. We have a lot of questions for you, Wenjia. So let me just put it on the screen so everyone could see it. Just a moment. But anyway, thank you everyone for showing your interest in the topic. And I believe we have learned so much in terms of insights, and a lot of the attendees today are from Thailand. So most of the questions are about the application to Thailand and also about perspectives, healthcare perspective, societal perspective. So I'm just gonna put the Q&A here. So this is from the Q&A box. Just a second.
Should I quit sharing?
Yeah, please. Okay, shall we go ahead to the first question? Wenjia, if you could elaborate whether your study results and conclusion will remain the same with different threshold. So not all countries are adopting the one-time per capita GDP.
Yeah, like most of the studies that that were published, they did not focus on, they did not use one-time national GDP per capita as the willingness to pay threshold. The reason why we are using it here is to follow the WHO's recommendation that we can unify the net monetary benefit calculation across countries and further consider take into consideration the a lower to middle income countries here. Yeah. But in the actual study that they published, they did not use the willingness to pay threshold as one-time per capita GDP. And I believe the result will be different. Yeah. this is just to go looking like this is just an overview of the value profile across different countries. So we need a unified like a WTP. Thank you.
Thank you. And we also have another relevant questions, I think. They want you to also clarify in the very first slides, I believe, that it's why the PM study is appear in NMB, so net monetary benefit, not the ISA.
The original publication, most of them are focused on ISA, but ISA is a ratio. So it's a ratio means that it does not follow normal distribution. We need to log transform them. It's for statistical analysis consideration, because when we perform meta-analysis and meta-regression, we hope that the distribution of the study points, the data points, are normally distributed in order to get more accurate estimate of the effect size. If they're not like normally distributed, we have to transform them. For example, ISA needs to be log transformed. And once you transform them, and you need to transform the effect size back, and the result become less interpretable.
I think it's the answer is pretty clear.
Yes.
And then I think we also have questions on perspective and maybe this one. Is it appropriate to use healthcare perspective in the evaluations of PM? And could you elaborate challenges using societal perspective?
I think Dr. Yo has a very profound knowledge on this.
I think the Thai guideline recommend to use societal perspective, but because of using societal perspective related to genetic disease, I think there are many challenges. First is that I think it's not clear in the guidelines. I mean, because in terms of genetic test, because you know about the property that may be transfers to generate in generations. So it means, I don't know, this is something unclear in the guideline, because if we can prevent genetic disease for the whole family with multiple generations, if using societal perspective, I mean, how long you need to count the impact? This is giving an example of the challenges, but also I think that even we look at only a single generation, I mean the patient generation, also the relative that can be impacted by the genetic test. This is also, I don't know whether how we count. It's quite challenging. Normally in traditional economic evaluation study, we only count the patients and all the cost, I mean direct non-medical costs or indirect costs occur only to the patient alone. But if genetic test, it can impact beyond the patients. This is, I think, a very obvious example of the challenge that can face when adopting societal perspective. And this is something that we can discuss next week, that we are going to develop the reference case for evaluation of precision medicine in Thailand. But we hope that this reference case can be useful for other countries too.
Thank you, Dr. Dr. Wenjia, you would like to add?
Yes, I think also like from a societal perspective, it's also more difficult to calculate the work productivity loss or gain due to PM itself, because we are comparing, the comparator is those patients without using PM, and the intervention is those patients with the use of PM, but they should have like a similar burden of mobility in terms of their influence on the work productivity. Yeah. And they tend to be very sick patients. So, yeah.
And I'd like to move on to the other questions about the bias. So someone say, I'm worrying that much higher value for money for private or profit funded studies. And what do you recommend in terms of how to prevent bias in private for profit funded studies, and which methodological aspects do contribute the most to the higher value of money of these studies?
Yeah, I think as we can see from the meta regression, although we calculated the eco-bias, risk of bias score for each study, but it did not appear to be a major value driver for most of the genetic test types. However, like the genetic tests, especially for the less cost-effective genetic test type like prognostic tests, it's more affected by the design specification of the modeling. So that is an indication that we need a standardized and specified approach to evaluate precision medicine that takes into account the unique feature of precision medicine intervention itself, such as the evolving decision space and the selection of, for example, like a study perspective and the source of data, like these type of requirement to standardize the conduct and report. Yeah, so that we can see where the value heterogeneity comes from and how good the study is in alignment with the recommendation. We're gonna hold a workshop for the development of reference case next week in Thailand. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have also a following up questions on private study. So they say that the difference must be very substantial between public and private in terms of, how can we trust the public and private studies? The level of, credentials may be different. So could you elaborate more on why you're not choosing the public sector studies only?
It is because like for private sector study, and you can see a lot of studies are coming from the United States and who tend to report like a high cost effectiveness profile. These are the regions with the most advanced technology, and advanced technology at its early or like a first development, the first market access stage, it's usually developed by like a private entity, like a private entities for profit. Yeah. And once the technology itself is more stabilized, it's gonna enter into the phase that it can be used for a different population. And this is where the public funded studies chime in to study their cost effectiveness. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we only have 2 minutes left. Yeah, but we can take for another 5 minutes. This one, can you help elaborate why genetic tests representing better value for money in higher or high income countries? And it's this because a higher CE threshold?
Yeah, like in higher income countries, as we just explained, such as like the countries of America, country of Europe, they are the countries who are developing the technology, and which means that when the technology first emerged into the market, it's actually developed by private entities. And the study was funded by private entities, and without like a standardized approach to prevent the like systematic bias in the reporting and conduct of the study, then we will see that these type of studies in high income country generally shows a higher cost and benefit profile. It may not be really directly linked to the country income level, but it can be related to the number of privately funded studies there and the number of new technology development there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Wenjia. So I think we have a lot more questions, but we need to keep it, and then we'll make sure to answer all the questions, and then we may ask you to help type and summarize the answers, and then we'll share with the attendees today. So I think it's time, and Thank you very much, Dr. Wenjia, and everyone who's joining us today. We will put the recording onto the YouTube and also HITAP website so you can watch back, and then we share with you again the answers to your questions. So any last words before we close for today?
Yes, I see a lot of the attendees have question about the choice of willingness to pay threshold. So by introducing the one-time national GDP per capita, we are monetizing the benefit to be equivalent to the capacity of the country's average population, so that it's like reflecting the country's affordability of this technology and additional benefit that the country's patient gains from using this technology. So it's a measure or a method to standardize the cost effectiveness profile across countries. Otherwise, we may see for lower income countries, the treatment of costs may be the cost of the treatment and the willingness to pay threshold, that can be lower. And if you don't apply for something that unify their affordability, then the result may not be persistent or consistent across countries. Thank you.
All right.
And thank you so much, everyone, for joining in this webinar. All your queries would be answered. You can stay tuned on our official YouTube channels as well as LinkedIn channel. And for the full text paper, you can go to the chat and see in the chat and download that. We will also update our full text papers related to this topic on our official YouTube channels. Thank you once again.